Today is January the 1st, 2005, and we're going to do a little military biographical information interview of George Ernest Krebs, 6955 Wingire Avenue, Alta, Michigan. This is told to me and collected by me, Ivan K. Blau. George's memory is rather limited, and most of the information is gathered from documents and pictures that have notes on the backsides, as well as from his wife Mary and other family members. George was born December the 1st, 1921, and grew up on a farm at 7068 Wingire Avenue in Alta, Michigan. His parents were John Krebs and Mary Wingire Krebs. George grew up with an older brother, Claire, a younger brother, David, and a sister, Irma. George attended and graduated from the Star Country School, and then he attended Lowell High School through the 11th grade. He enjoyed working on the farm and taking care of the farm animals. But at age 19, he enlisted and entered the service January the 24th, 1941. He reported for service at Fort Custer, Michigan. He was then sent to Fort Worden, Washington, and assigned to Battery D, 120th AAA Gunnery Battalion, 14th Coast Artillery, for basic training. While he was there at basic training, there was a newspaper clipping. We have some information, and this fellow wrote a little article in the paper about George. I'm going to read that. It was from Glenn Dennis, and this was in the Lowell Ledger. Now, Glenn Dennis, whose home is at Fallsburg, and who is a member of the Battery D, 14th Coast Artillery, Fort Worden, Washington, sends the following to the Ledger regarding another Lowell boy, George Krebs, who is also stationed at Fort Worden. We are proud of our hometown boy. He volunteered in the Army January 23, 1941. He wasn't in the Army only 8 weeks before he was put on special duty as latrine orderly and head fireman. He got a private first-class rating for this job. He keeps the water warm so we can take a bath at any hour. We was so good that the colonel gave him a first and fifth rating, which pays $42 a month, a lot different than $21. I'm sure if his girlfriend could read this, she would be very proud of him. He is a nice-looking boy. Does he ever look swell with his stripes? He spends only 4 hours a day polishing them. This is all I had better write about our hometown boy today. The Harley motorcycle. And on March 18th, 1942, apparently he was on furlough, he had an accident with his motorcycle. He broke his nose and his collarbone, and he spent 45 days in the hospital. I guess Mary must have felt sorry for him because she went to see him on April the 7th, 1943. This is Mary Kwazak. And before she came home, they were married. Now we have another clipping here from the Lowell Ledger, and I think this was written by Laura Blau, my mother, and it says, Mr. and Mrs. Walter Kwaszak of Bound Center announced the marriage of their daughter, Mary, to PFC George E. Krebs, son of Mr. and Mrs. John Krebs of Alto. The ceremony took place April 7th at 8 p.m. in the parish house at Port Townsend, Washington, with the Reverend Charles W. Rieger, S.J., officiating. The couple were attended by Miss Betty J. Crone and Private Francis Peterson. The bride wore a powder blue suit with wine accessories, and her corsage was of gardenias. Miss Crone wore a wine corduroy with blue accessories. The newly married couple arrived home Sunday evening to spend the week with his parents, other relatives, and friends, all of whom wished them a long and happy wedded life. After April 22nd, they will reside at Fort Worden, Washington, where PFC Krebs is stationed. Soon after George and Mary returned to California, George, on May 18, 1943, was assigned to Camp Hahn, California, and assigned to a anti-aircraft battalion, where he spent a lot of time training on the Mojave Desert. He was sent overseas after a train ride across the U.S. to New York, where he left on the Queen Mary on December the 23rd, 1943. Spent Christmas and 4 days to cross the Atlantic. A few weeks later, this article appeared in the Lowell Ledger. It said Mr. and Mrs. John Krebs received a letter Monday from their son, Corporal George E. Krebs, saying he arrived somewhere overseas safely, is well, and the food is good. This is the first word they have had for several weeks. A little later, this article appeared. Mr. and Mrs. John Krebs received a lovely bouquet of roses from their son, Corporal George E. Krebs, who is stationed somewhere in England. The cable was sent in January, being delayed before reaching the USA, but was delivered March the 25th. His wife, Mary, at Bound Center, received one also the same day. George spent from December 29, 1943 to June 14, 1944 in England, and then he was sent to Normandy, France. In Normandy, France, I think he and some of the buddies are shown here visiting with some of the French people, and apparently made friends with this French farmer. George and his buddy Gold must have made pretty good friends with this French farmer and his family, and because George mentioned that to me that the old farmer liked to eat his fish with the heads on, so that was a little different to our boys and the way George was used to cleaning fish and eating them. So apparently they were invited there sometime or other for a dinner in the French farmer's home. George was trained as a truck driver and a truck mechanic, He tells me that it was his job to take care of his truck, keep it in good repair, and make all repairs on it. And he was in France from June 14th, 1944 until March 18th, 1945. And then he made his way, I imagine, traveling this truck all the way through up into Luxembourg and then on to Belgium. And we know that that some of the going was pretty tough for these trucks. As in the picture here, it was pretty muddy. And I asked George about it, and he said he couldn't really remember, but he said, I got it jacked up there. So you can see there is a jack there. I didn't notice it before, but it is jacked up. Underneath the truck, there's a jack, and it looks like they were stuck in the mud, and it was a pretty messy job going across France and in Luxembourg and finally into Belgium. This picture shows George in Belgium, and on the back of the picture it shows that he was there on August the 9th, 1945. So he's come all the way across France, Luxembourg, and into Belgium, and now I think they're about to go to Germany. This is a picture from Germany, and it's on the Rhine River. And on the back of the picture he's written that this is the Rhine River picture that I found. And anyway, at the back of it, it says Boppard, B-O-P-P-A-R-D, then A-M, and then R-H-E-I-N. So I don't know just what that means in German, but it's where something he picked up there in Germany. This is about the end of his tour here, and so after that time he was sent home on board the Aquarium, it's A-Q-U-I-T-A-N-I-A-N, that was a ship, and he arrived in New York on October the 4th, 1945. George served 2 years, 11 months, 5 days in Continental service, and 1 year, 9 months, and 12 days in foreign service. That's a total of 4 years, 8 months, and 17 days. And he acquired the rank of corporal and a technician 5th class during that time. He was discharged on October the 11th, 1945 at Camp Attenbury, Indiana, and then he came by train to Grand Rapids and hitchhiked home to Mary and Barbara Jean, who were staying at her folks' home near Bound Center. And Mary says it came just after they got finished with breakfast. And I'm sure that was a very happy reunion. George settled back into civilian life with Mary and raised their children, Barbara Jean and Robert, by living and farming several different farms in the Alto area before buying the present farm at 6955 Wingire, where he resides with his wife, Mary. George served actually in the Normandy, northern France, Rhineland, and Central Europe, That was where he got his battles and campaign ribbons from. Among them are the FAME Theater Ribbon with 4 bronze stars, an American Defense Service Medal, a Good Conduct Medal. And the ones on the right-hand side are the Rifleman's Certification Badge and the Submachine Gun Certification Bar. And then below that is a Mechanics and Truck Drivers medal with a mechanic and driver's bar underneath it. Above to the right is his corporal stripes with technician 5th class, and the A is for the anti-aircraft battalion, and that's the other patch for that battalion. So I'll have to show you a few other just plain shots here just to end our little documentary, and I hope you've enjoyed this. George, we want to thank you for all of your service to our country. We thank you from the Lowell Area Historical Museum as well as from myself. And I want you to know that this little documentary will be on the records of the Lowell Area Historical Museum, as well as in the Michigan Military History's archives. A few little pictures here of your farm and where you're residing at this point.
The following oral military history project is a series of documentaries in association with the Lowell area men and women who proudly served and sacrificed part of their lives to preserve the opportunities for all of us to build our businesses and raise our families under a blanket of freedom. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.